Are you ready? Let me have some message on the chat. And still I realize that expertise is yet to come. So he was not lying. If he was saying 20, that was also less. Actually, it takes more time. Okay, so don't be disheartened, but you will get to understand the law over a period of time. As of now, what you're getting, that is only information. Okay, so this is an entire list of all the sections, and at the end, there is list of schedules. These are 7 schedules, and then begins the Companies Act. Okay, so here in the Companies Act, I have set a big margin on the left side, adding my own notes, and that you will see here. Okay, so lots of things, and now I'll take you to specific pages where I want to take you, and let's go to page number 85, and this is okay. So these kind of notes I'm adding. So this is just to give you a hint what I'm doing and why I'm delaying the sharing of this file. So I'm trying to do as much as possible I can do, and most probably by tomorrow I should be completing this, and then I will share. Now, if I take it to the end of this file right now, section is 447, and 447 I have included in this file because this is frequently used whenever there is a fraud or misrepresentation by the management of the company with anyone. This section is very commonly referred in the entire act. So this is I have mentioned. Otherwise, this is up to section 148. Because from 149 begins the chapter of related to directors. So this file is up to section 148, and there will be next file which will be starting from section 149 going up to the end of the Companies Act. So this file most probably I will share tomorrow with all the people, those who have shared their number, and I will strictly make a request not to share this with the people, those who are not serious. And a little hard remark I have for the people, those who are not responding. In last 2 lectures, I requested that some homework was given. Almost 50% of the people have submitted their homework. But remaining 50%, those who are not bothered about what is the message being given to them, what instruction is being given to them, what is being taught to them, then let me tell you frankly that those who are not bothered about the instruction, they may be preparing for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth attempt. If you're not serious, if you don't have a discipline, then exams are there every 6 months. And teachers like me are tough. If I give you instruction, I want you to work on that. And if you're not working, prepare for next exams. Every 6 months exams are there. That's why institute is there. Good morning, Poonam. So that was a little hard remark, but that is the fact that if you're not serious about the homework, better prepare for next exam, not this exam. I give you this much of homework, and that also you have not bothered, right? Now, some more thing that is a feedback for the people, not a remark, right? Now, some of the people have submitted their homework on working on Word on computer, right? Your exam is on writing. You have to practice writing only, right? I know you can draft very well. Your resolutions, I have read, some people have done outstanding work, okay? And but in exam, you will have to write it on the paper. So writing practice has to be improved because that is one area where people fail despite having best of the knowledge. So I want you to have the knowledge and also the practice to write in the exam. I've very commonly heard from the student that they are not able to complete the paper. Why? Because they don't have a writing practice. How many times before exam you have practiced for writing 2 hours in continuously? Your answer will be never, right? Or only in the last exam and this exam. Between these 2 exams, you never had practice for writing 2 hours or 3 hours. How come all of a sudden you can write 3 hours in the exam? Develop some practice. Yes, I have seen the homework. That is what I have already said, that lots of people have submitted their homework, and I'm thankful to them. I must congratulate them that they are taking it seriously. And those who are serious, once again, let me repeat my remark. They are preparing for this exam, and those who are not submitting the homework, they are preparing for next attempts. Very hard remark. If you're not serious, you can leave the lecture. Thank you very much. Okay, now let us continue further. Is there so going back to where we were? So what was the last topic we were talking about? Section 27 we had done. Okay. Will be see, let us cover up some important areas rather than going because time allotted is very less, and some important things to explain to you. I think this was just a minute. Okay. Hmm. One minute, one minute. Okay. Now, let us start with this topic. What is the difference between public issue and offer for sale of shares? Right quickly, what is the difference between public issue and offer for sale of shares? Write it. Difference between public issue and offer for sale of shares. No. Be more clear. Public issues by company, offer for sale is by the members. Good. So some of the students are very clear about that. So let me repeat once again that public issue is by the company inviting public for subscribing shares of the company, and offer for sale of shares is by existing member or members of the company. So when public issue is there, money is received by the company, but when offer for sale is there, company does not receive anything. Money is received by the people or the shareholders who are selling their shares. Okay, so some of the students are already clear, and this is an answer for all those who were not clear about this topic. Okay, so that is the difference between public issue and offer for shares. And now we are going back to the share part. That is where the title is offer for sale of shares by certain members of the company. What it is simply saying in this entire chapter, what is said is that even if offer for sale is made, the offer document issued to public will be treated as if it is a prospectus. Right. So section 28 is saying that where certain members of the company propose in consultation with the board to offer in accordance with the provisions of law for the time being in force whole or part of their holding of shares to the public, they may do so in accordance with the procedure prescribed. So it will be treated as if it is a public issue. It is not exactly a public issue by the company. This is a public offer for sale. This is not a public issue by the company, but all the provisions are more or less equally applicable. The document issued by the shareholders to the public for subscribing or buying these shares, that will be treated as a prospectus. Then the further subsection 2 says any document which the offer for sale to public is made shall for all purposes be deemed it to be a prospectus. This is very important line. And in nutshell, I'm telling you that literally all the provisions of the public issue become applicable to that also, except that minimum subscription. That doesn't apply because it is not being issued by the company, it is by the existing shareholders. So except that minimum subscription, almost all the conditions are equally applicable. So here we have said that contents are going to be as per the prospectus, then misstatement provisions are same as per the prospectus, those provisions are equally applicable. Now this section 29, this I am omitting, you can read it. Advertisement, this I am omitting. Yes, shelf prospectus, this we have to understand a little bit. This is important. What is shelf prospectus? Right. So here itself I can write only for banks and financial institutions. Okay. So this is I'm doing in the entire act so that reading becomes easy for you. So who can file a shelf prospectus? Okay. So those who are attending the understand the difference between shelf and self. So this is shelf prospectus. So this is as good as kept in Almira. This is valid for So shelf prospectus I was talking about. So this is a prospectus which can be issued only by the banks and financial institutions, and this is valid for a period of 12 months. Otherwise, prospectus is valid for not more than 90 days. This is valid for 12 months. Why? Because these are the institutions which keep on raising money from the public in different forms by issuing different type of security. Of course, in the current scenario and in last 2, 3, 4 years, you have not seen that frequently, but otherwise that is the common practice. They keep on issuing certain type of securities to the public regularly. So either on private placement basis or through the public issue. So this is mainly for public issue. So when one prospectus is filed by them, this is valid for a period of 12 months. And during a validity of that prospectus, if they want to issue any other, if they want to make any other issue of security, then they have to issue only one statement of changes in financial position, since the financial position already given in the offer document, right? So offer document or this prospectus already filed with the ROC as a shelf prospectus plus statement of changes in financial position as submitted last time, these two together become a prospectus for that public issue, right? If you have a question, you can certainly ask me in between. Because once we go ahead, then it is difficult for us to come back because syllabus is very wide and time is very less. So we need to cover up more and more things. So if you have any specific questions, you can ask me here or you can send me personally. My number is already with you. Okay. So I will answer the question personally also, but there may be some delays. Answer will certainly be there. So once again, let me repeat that the shelf prospectus is a concept which is applicable only for public banks and financial institutions, valid for a period of 12 months, and any number of issues can be made during validity of this. And every time a fresh issue is to be made, then the issuer is required to issue a statement of changes in financial position. Okay, and once we go ahead, red herring prospectus, this I had explained completely. What is called a red herring prospectus? Issue of application form, this we are not doing. And this liability portion also we had done, I think. Yes, I'm sorry, there's some portion we repeated. Action by affected person. What is called a private placement? This is something important. What is the difference between public issue and private placement? In public issue, offer is open to public and anybody can subscribe to the security. When it is a private placement can be made only to the person specifically without a right of renunciation. Renunciation means he cannot transfer his right in favor of any other person. Like right issue. Whenever a right offer is given to an existing shareholder, a right of renunciation is also there. But not in case of private placement. So private placement means it is an offer made to a person in a specific and without a right of renunciation. So either that person will subscribe or he will not. He cannot transfer his right to anybody else. Now, prior to Companies Act 2013, what used to happen? That will make you understand this subject more easily, or rather this section more easily. So those who have read such Companies Act 1956, they certainly know the differences, but for you, those who are not reading, some comments are there, so I'm not able to see the comments. How do I see the comments simultaneously? Okay, so let me stop sharing so that I can see the chat, at least what is going on there. To do position of financial statement with ROC, yes, that will have to be filed with the ROC also. So then the prospectus has to be registered with ROC, and these two things together become a prospectus. Then the latest financial position statement has to be filed with the ROC. So I was talking to you about the private placement. So private placement is a situation where offer is given to a person in a specific, and only he can subscribe, and no other person is having a right to subscribe the security. Earlier in Companies Act 1956, companies used to get application money and keep it pending for years and years and years together without making any allotment. No dividend, no interest, no right to the person who was applied, but that was being used as a means of finance to the company indirectly. Get the money from the people in the name of application money, and later on don't make allotment, return the money. So that was certainly under some understanding, but in this act that lacuna has been removed, and now if the allotment, whatever application money is received, first of all keep it in a separate bank account, make allotment within a period of 60 days, otherwise refund the money. So that is the main highlight which we'll see in the section. Okay, so let us go back to the section again and over there. So in the private placement, we have a company may, subject to the provisions of this section, make a private placement of securities, and private placement shall be made only to the select group of persons who have been identified by the board, whose number shall not exceed 50 or such higher number as may be prescribed, excluding the QIBs, qualified institutional buyers, and employees of the company being offered securities under the employee stock option. So this says either 50 or higher number as may prescribed. So maximum number that can be done in a financial year is not more than 200. And a company making private placement shall issue private placement offer and application in the form and manner of the prescribed identified person whose name and address are recorded. So this offer has to be given in person to any person. This can be open, and in olden times it was necessary. No, 50 is not minimum, that is maximum. Okay, so 50 or more. So higher number is given by the government, that is up to 200 can be done, not more than 200 in 1 year. So this is saying that when the document, olden times, we used to issue the application forms with the name of the applicant written over there with a properly printed document, private placement, but name is of the applicant is already mentioned there, and so that cannot be changed at all. If you issue a blank form where applicant can fill up his name, then that becomes a public offer, because either the person to application form is being given, either he is going to fill it up or somebody else is going to fill it up. It becomes a public offer, then anybody can fill it up. But when it is given with a specific name of the applicant, then this is a private placement. Then see here, this is important. Provided that private placement of application shall not carry any right of renunciation. Right of renunciation means right to transfer the offer given to that person. He cannot transfer that to anybody else. So private placement is gone. Okay, so let's move further. Number 4, every identified person willing to subscribe to the private placement shall apply in the private placement an application issued to the person along with the subscription money paid in check or demand draft or through other banking channels. So only he can apply. Now this is the money has to be a separate account. This is here. The provided that the company shall not utilize the money raised to the private placement unless allotment is made and the return of allotment is filed with the ROC. So in the old law, this was not a condition at all. Amount of application money was shown in the balance sheet for years and years and years together without making any allotment. And actually that was being utilized in the company's business. Now the requirement is that whatever application money you happen to receive in the private placement, you are supposed to keep that in a separate bank account till the allotment has been made and the return of allotment. The time limit is already here. We are going to see that. And no fresh offer invitation shall be made unless the allotment with respect to offer invitation made earlier have been completed or it has been withdrawn. So unless previous offer is completed in every respect, no further offer can be made. And here in the left margin mentioned, if you read only left margin, that is good enough. We don't have to read the right one. So that's what I am trying to do. That allotment within 60 days or refund within next 15 days or for delay pay interest at the rate of 12% per annum. So which one has become much easier? Reading subsection 6 or the amendments? Which is much easier to read? So if you are reading the comments, these are for the purpose of revision. Right. Section is already given to you. In case of confusion, refer that. Otherwise, these notes are good enough. And these I'm doing especially in different colors so that colors do attract you. So these are, I have prepared all this, and this is my efforts. So I will request you not to share the document with the people, those who are not here on this platform now. Keep it up to you. This is my gift to you, and let me work on this. It will take me a little time, but once I share, this is the final document for you. Okay. And the best part is that this is updated till today. Whatever has been done in law till yesterday, that has also been amended here. So if you have any confusion what is written in the study material provided by the institute and in this, which is correct one, certainly this is correct what is being given because I updated the law on day-to-day basis on my record. Okay. So now company making an offer for invitation under this section shall also allot its securities within 60 days from the date of receipt of application money for such securities. And if the company not able to allot the securities within that period, it shall repay the application money to the subscribers within 15 days from the expiry of 60 days. And if the company fails to repay the application money within the aforesaid period, it shall be liable to repay the money with interest at the rate of 12% per annum for the expiry from the expiry of 60th day. Everything summarized here, what is required. Okay, so here I have already summarized that allotment for private placement has to be done within 60 days. 60 days begin from the date on which application money has been received. And if it is not done within 60 days, then make the refund within 15 days. And within 15 days, you don't have to pay interest. But if you delay, then interest becomes payable from 61st day. After 75 days. Interest begins from 61st day because 15 days of window has been given to you. Actually, that 60 days itself is a window, right? So for that period, interest is payable. Now, what to do with this money? So this I've already told you that it is required to be kept in a separate bank account, and this money can be utilized only for two purposes: either adjustment toward the capital or refund. No third use of this money. So provided that money is received on application under this section shall be kept in a separate account in a scheduled bank and shall not be utilized for any purpose other than adjustment against allotment or for making the refund. No other purpose this money shall be utilized. And no publicity is allowed in respect of the private placement already done. No company issuing securities under this section shall release any public advertisement to utilize media, marketing or distribution channel or agent to inform the public at large about such an issue. Let it be a private affair. The private placement, let it be a private affair. Don't make it public. Return of allotment, it is to be filed within 15 days after the allotment has been made. So every year of securities requires a filing of return with the ROC. So this is also private placement. This is also allotment of shares. So this return has to be filed within 15 days since allotment is done. Okay. And then there is a penalty fault. So penalties are generally not asked in the exam. Very rarely there can be a question on penalty. Okay. And here, if a company makes an offer or accepts money in contravention of this section, then the penalties have become heavy now. So the company and its promoters and directors shall be liable for a penalty which may extend to the amount raised through the private placement of 2 crores, whichever is lower. It is not higher. If it is higher, then certainly it will become something very, very serious, whichever is lower. And the company shall also refund all the application money. So what is most important as far as the private placement is concerned? Number one, what is called a private placement? Number two, what is to be done with application money? Number three, the allotment. Number four, the refund and interest, and then filing of return. And last is default. If any default is committed, what will happen? And that will complete your note on the private placement. Okay. Now, no advertisement, private placement, but just let me see what you're. Distributor for the same means what? This is not clear to me, so we can make a small chart for private placement. Private placement is not a subject matter of chart, but only certain points are there. Preferential allotment, I'll come to that. What is the deemed prospectus? It is given in module B. Yes. Okay. See, many things will be not be able to complete here, but whenever I do something special, now tell me one thing. Should I create a WhatsApp group for the people to share something more? If you tell me yes, I'll create, but only I will post. You can send me personal message. Should I create a WhatsApp group for all of you? Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll create a WhatsApp group and I keep on creating the lots and lots of information, lots of charts, and that I'll keep on sharing with you. But only I will post. If you have to send me a message, you can always send me a personal message and I will be answering that. Okay, because otherwise that becomes a clutter and I don't want a clutter in the group. I'm open to listen to you. I'm open to answer to your queries, but that should be one to one. You have to. I have already requested number of times to share your number, and if you don't share, what do I do? No, not on this platform. Please don't share number here. That goes public. Remove this number. My number I have given number of times. Once again, I'll write it here. This is 961961280. And this number you can share with other people also, those who want to be part of the group, and they can send me a message and I will add in the group. So I'll create the group maybe by tomorrow because it takes a lots of time. And if you have a question, you send me a message personally, right? Because as I said, in the group that creates a clutter, lots of information will come and everybody will have different comments. So no, in that case only I will share. And if you have to say anything, keep my number saved and you can always message me personally. Okay, so now let's go ahead further. Time is less and we have to do a lot more. So here we're coming to the share capital. So if a company is limited by shares, you see how to read the law. This I'm teaching you here. The share capital of a company limited by shares. So when we say limited by shares, so it is not saying completely limited by shares only. So this can be completely limited by shares only, or this can be guarantee plus share capital. Of course, such companies are very, very rare, which are limited by guarantee and share capital. Very rare. So either companies are limited by guarantee or those are limited by shares. So where the company is limited by shares, it can have either equity capital or preference capital. Equity capital can be with the voting rights, and it can. Okay, let me do it to you for everyone here. Is it visible to all? Can everybody see this number? So this is my personal number. Okay. If you try to make a call, unknown numbers I may not pick up. Okay. But you can send me a message. Once your number is saved, I'll pick up the call. I may not pick up at the time when you call, but then it is my responsibility to call you back. So here, now equity capital, maybe it may be with the voting rights or without voting rights. Without voting rights are given only in case of collaborations, where you want to give a share to the people out of profits, but don't want to give them a controlling stake in the company. So that is a matter of choice, when and where and to whom you want to issue shares with the differential voting rights. Okay, so the voting rights may or may not be there, but other things are equal. And the preference capital, that is the preference capital, means it is having certain preferential rights. So we are going further. So what are preferential rights here? Preferential capital, the first preferential payment of dividend. So before any dividend is paid to the equity shareholders, they will be paid a dividend. And the rate of dividend may be either fixed or it is calculated at a certain rate, that depends. And another preferential right is repayment of capital in the event of winding up of the company. So before equity shareholders are paid anything, the preference capital is preference over equity only. There is no other preference. In the winding up, in what sequence amount is paid back? Any idea? In the event of winding up, in what sequence amount is paid back? What is the preferential order of payments in the during the process of winding up? Workman compensation. That is number one. What is number two? Secured creditors. Okay. Number three. Government dues. Okay. What is next? So let me give you an idea. Let me give you. Okay. Number one. Whenever winding up commences, all the liabilities existing up to that date and liabilities arising after that. So the liabilities arising after commencement of winding up have to be paid in preference to any other duty. And liquidators remuneration is a part of that. Salaries of the workmen becoming due after that, that is also a part of that. So any liability arising after commencement of winding up has to be discharged before discharge of prior liability. Okay, so we call them by different names. Liabilities arising after commencement of winding up, those are called winding up expenses. So those have to be paid in preference to winding up liabilities. And liabilities are those which are already outstanding as on the date of commencement of winding up. Right? So I can give you a small chart for that, but that is a part of winding up. So simply you can divide that in two parts. Liabilities and winding up expenses. Winding up expenses are any liability being created after the commencement of winding up, and liabilities are those are already existing as on the date of winding up. So liabilities are settled in the order: number one, workmen plus secured creditors contribution; number two is government dues; number three, secured debts other than what is already falling in number one, then unsecured debts, then preference capital, then equity capital. So that is the order in which liabilities have to be settled. So when we say repayment, so repayment is in preference to equity capital only. They don't have preference over secured creditors. They don't have preference over the government dues or workmen. No, their preference is only in relation to equity capital. Then They may also have an additional right of participation. These are called preferential, these are right of participation. So this right can be given either in the terms of allotment, or these can be given in the articles of association. So preference shareholders may be given additional right to participate in the dividend, but after paying their predetermined dividend and after paying the dividend to the equity shareholders. If more profit is remaining, then articles may contain a condition or provide for payment of additional dividend. So dividend will be paid an equity. This right may be there, this right may not be there. Now, same thing can happen during the process of winding up also. That during the process of winding up, once their capital has been repaid and the equity capital has also been repaid and the surplus assets are remaining, these are called participating preference shares. These are right. But these additional rights can be given through articles or through terms of offer. These are not existing generally. Generally only two preferential conditions are there. Number one, dividend, and number two, repayment in the process of winding up. Right? Okay. Section 44. This is something very, very important to understand. Nature of shares or debenture. The shares or debenture or other interest of any member in the company shall be movable property, transferable in the manner provided by the articles of the company. Now, you must have read generally that in a private company, the right of members to transfer the shares is restricted. And here it is saying it is transferable. What is the difference? I'm just closing the sharing for 1 minute and we'll discuss this question. This is a very, very important question for you to understand. Exemption calculating as 200. No. My question was, here we have said that shares are movable and transferable property. In case of private company, the rights of members are restricted. How these two things are related? Are these contradictory or these are same? Come quick. Parallel. There is no restriction. Contradictory. Contradictory. Okay. What more? You remember some time back I told you in the beginning of the lecture today that as of now you will only learn the law. You will not understand law. Is it correct? In the beginning of the lecture today I told you that as of now, as a student, what is going to happen, that you will only know the knowledge. Understanding will come later. Okay. Now let me explain you what is given there. Just hold on. This number is noted. Can I remove this? Okay. So I'm just removing the number so that I'll clarify what I want to say. Now take an example. A car. Okay. It can be driven. Okay. In case of a car can be driven, but you cannot drive unless you are having a driving license. You may be the owner of the car, but still you cannot drive because you don't have driving license. Now put here share. Share is a transferable but you cannot transfer because your rights are restricted. Share is transferable. Basic nature it is transferable, but you cannot transfer because your rights are restricted. Okay. Now there are two things. One is the nature of share. And another is the right of member. Okay. Nature of share, this is movable. This is a transferable. Okay. But member is restricted, and this is not prohibited. If it is prohibited, then it will become contradictory because nature of share by the law is it is movable and transferable. So there cannot be any provisions in the memorandum and articles providing for complete prohibition of transfer. That will become contradictory. What is said is share is movable, it is transferable, but you cannot. It is not that you cannot. If you say shares cannot be transferred, it will become contradictory. And if it is contradictory, section 6 says act will have overriding effect. Provisions in the memorandum or articles which are contradictory to law will automatically become provisions which are within the provisions of law, only those are valid. So what it can be done? The rights of the members are restricted. That you can transfer subject to fulfillment of certain conditions, then those shares are also movable and those are transferred. Is this concept clear? Tell me, is it clear or you need some more clarification? So friends, once again, take my words, right? Lots of you are in the age of my children. So believe me the fact, I'll give you the example. Believe me the one fact, that it takes years and years of continuous work before you understand law. Don't be overconfident by scoring in the exam that you know the law, you are a qualified company secretary. Nothing happens. By getting the degree, you are just eligible to get into the job, nothing else. Real understanding will come after a long time. Keep on working seriously, right? And if I can help you anywhere, I will be there to help you. Okay, now giving you example that how the rights are restricted. Usually the rights are restricted in a private company, and that is given that if you want to sell the shares, so sell it to, or rather make an offer to the existing shareholder first. It doesn't say so you can sell only to the existing member. That you cannot do that. Okay, that you cannot do. What you can do is that first offer should be given only to the existing shareholders. And if they do not subscribe or do not accept the offer within a specific period which you specify in the offer, then you are open to offer, make the offer to anybody else for selling this. So what is the restriction? You don't have openly, or you cannot openly offer the shares to outsiders. First offer has to be given to the existing shareholders. Okay, that is one restriction, right? In one article, I have seen the restriction that whenever you want to sell the shares, you will sell the shares only at a nominal value of the shares to the existing shareholder. I said it is clearly a void condition. This is absolutely illegal. Company is already more than 20 years old. It has grown already hundreds of times since incorporation, and still you want to buy the shares from the existing shareholders at par value. Not possible at all. Void provision. So restriction has to be valid and practical. If it is a practical restriction, it is valid. Right. Now, say for example, if you want to incorporate in the articles of association that if you want to sell the share, you will have to run 100 kilometers and then only you can transfer the shares. Forget that. These are illegal things. What is practical? Only those restrictions are valid. So there cannot be any prohibition. There can be only restrictions on transfer of shares. Okay. Is this clear? Anybody wants to ask anything? What is the difference between restriction and prohibition? The basic nature of the share, it is transferable. Okay, and that will continue to be same under any situation. A company cannot prohibit a member from transferring the shares. And if anybody tries to do that, that is a violation of the law. It is just 2 lines, but it is having lots of value. That's why I did this section. I took some time to complete this section. Then comes numbering of the shares. Every share is identified by the distinctive number. And it is having relevance because the determination of the time of allotment can be done on the basis of distinctive number of shares. Right. Suppose in my company, I hold a share which is having a distinctive number 1, and you hold another share in my company which is distinctive number 1,00,000. At par for certain metals, but not at par for certain other metals. Right. Say, for example, the capital gains. If I sell the share which is having distinctive number 1, it is certainly allotted to me at the time of incorporation, and in that case, it may be more than 10 years old. In your case, as I said, you are holding 1 share of my company, and that is a distinctive number 1,00,000. Quite possible that has been allotted last month. And if you are selling that, and I am selling the share, the selling price may be same, but the treatment will be different. It is not necessary that existing in a private company members will offer to the existing members only. Any kind of restriction can be done. That is only one example. Only one example that the member should offer to the existing members, and generally that kind of condition is kept. Generally, but that is not the sole restriction. There can be number of restrictions. Okay. So here, numbering of the shares. So every share is identified by a distinctive number, and this becomes relevant for many purposes. So I give you example that distinctive number share having distinctive number 1 and share which is having distinctive number 1,00,000, that will make a difference on the date of allotment, and accordingly there will be different treatments for that purpose. Then share certificate. What is share certificate? Share certificate is when the shares have been allotted. When the shares are allotted, then this becomes an evidence of the fact, whatever is mentioned in the share, that who is the shareholder, how many shares are there, whether how much money he has paid. It becomes a conclusive evidence of the fact that the person whose name share certificate has been issued, he is the allottee or he is the holder of the share. So when the shareholder is original, he will be referred as the allottee, otherwise he will be referred as a transferee, but ultimately he is the shareholder. So the person in whose name certificate is there as of today, he is the shareholder of the company. He is holding the number of shares mentioned in the certificate, and he has already paid the amount which is shown as paid up on the share certificate. So that is an evidence. So once that certificate is being given to somebody, he can accept that these are the declarations being given by the company, but the declarations are valid only if the certificate has been issued by the company in accordance with the procedure of law. If the procedure of law is violated, or the certificate itself is issued as a fraud, then these declarations are not there. Right? So this is a certificate issued under the common seal if any company is signed by 2 directors and company secretary, where the company has appointed secretary, specify the shares held by the person shall be prima facie evidence of the title of the person. So what are these declarations? Right? So let me write it here for you. So how to write this? This also you can learn. So go to the insert column and take a text box. In the text box, draw the text here and draw this here. Okay. Now I can write share certificate is a declaration. Declaration of what? Number 1, share. me little broader. Okay. Shareholder, then shares, then number amount paid upon those, and then you can fill it up like this way going here, and if I click, it will be like got it. How to create notes here. So not only company law I'm teaching, I'm trying to teach you something more. So share certificate issued. Yeah, number of shares have to be mentioned there and including distributed numbers. So this is an official declaration by the company that the person in whose name share certificate has been issued, he is the shareholder of company and he is holding the number of shares which are specified therein, and he is already paid the amount which is shown as having been paid. And when the duplicate can be issued? Duplicate certificate can be issued only when original is either lost or destroyed. Right? And in two situations, if original is lost, there is one procedure, but original got either mutilated, it can be submitted to the company for issue of another one. Procedure will differ. Share certificates are always there. As of now, only one certificate is issued to the depository. Still the share certificate is there. But in case of private companies, closely held companies, share certificate is important. Okay. Even today, it is not irrelevant. As a beneficiary holder of shares, so your name is there, the register of beneficiaries maintained by the depository. So you don't have a share certificate, but digital certificate is always there. So here, once again, let me tell you, so duplicate share certificate, these are two situations where duplicate will be issued. Number one, it is lost or destroyed. Number two, it is mutilated. So when it is lost or destroyed, then you will have to make, or you will have to follow a long procedure just to ensure that the no fraud is committed. But when it is mutilated and it is submitted to the company, then company can directly go ahead and issue a duplicate share certificate. That depends upon what is the procedure decided by the company. Law does not regulate what procedure you should follow for issue of duplicate share certificate. Every company may have a different procedure. Okay. Yes. Number 5. So a company with the intent to defraud the duplicate certificate share, the company shall be punishable with fine which not be less than 5 times of the face value of shares involved in the issue of duplicate certificate, but which may extend to 10 times the face value or rupees 10 crores, whichever is higher. And every officer, so see here what is possible. So by chance, if any fraud is committed by issuing duplicate shares, now question is why the company will do that. I've seen examples number of times. Let me tell you. Now, this is not possible what I'm going to tell you, but earlier that was very, very common. When depositories were not there, when shares were not in the digital form, this kind of fraud was very, very easy. I've worked with corporates, so I'm sharing some experience out of that. Okay, so what used to happen that promoters are having share certificates and they pledge the shares with one bank or financial institution. Take the right, prepare another certificate for the same shares which are already placed with one bank. Take another loan, right? So that fraud was very, very common, and no specific penalty was there under the Companies Act 1956 for that kind of issue, which is there now in subsection 5. In subsection 5, it is specifically said if it is done intentionally to defraud. So when this kind of activity is done, that is certainly an intention to defraud. Defraud whom? Anyone. Just get public, that can be bank, that can be financial institution, anyone to whom you want to defraud. Then this penalty becomes applicable. So this is saying 5 times the value of shares involved in the issue of duplicate share certificate, but which may extend to 10 times the face value of shares or rupees 10 crores, whichever is the higher. And not only that, the officers are also punishable under section 447, and 447 is providing for imprisonment up to 10 years. Right. So I'll 447. That is why I kept that in this file. I'll take you to the end and then we'll come here. See, if you're not aware how to operate the word, let me tell you. So here, if you can see this, we go here, we click on this and directly, okay, right now I can go directly. So this is section 447 and what it says. Without prejudice to the liability, including repayment of the debt under this act or other law for the time being in force, any person who is found to be guilty of fraud involving an amount of so and so, and it can go here. Minimum 6 months and 10 years. And the fine which is not less than the amount involved in the fraud, which may extend to 3 times of the amount. So this is the penalty to the individual who is involved in fraud. Okay. So this can be only to the individual. Now going back to the same page, how to go ahead, just click here and the page number, enter, and you are on that page. Okay, close it. So that was about the duplicate share certificate. Now coming to the voting rights of shareholders. So there are equity shareholders, there are preference shareholders. So equity shareholders will have a right to vote on every resolution placed before the general meeting if the shares are issued with the differential voting right, then that is a different issue. Otherwise, equity shareholders will always have a right to vote in case of every resolution placed in the general meeting, and preference shareholders will have a right to vote only on those subjects which are directly affecting their rights. So their rights may be variation of their rights, or it is a case of relating to winding up of the company, then they will also have a right. And there is a situation where the voting rights of the preference shareholders become at par with the equity, with the voting rights of the equity shareholders. So those become at par where the dividend has not been paid for 2 years on a preference shareholder. Where the dividend has not been paid to the preference shareholders for 2 years, in that case, their voting rights will be at par with the equity shareholders. Okay, so here will go through the section and then we'll prepare a chart. So here, section 47. Subject to provision section 40, every member of the company limited by shares and holding equity shares shall have a right to vote on every resolution placed before the company, and his voting rights of pool shall be in proportion. So that is about the pool. I'll make a chart and tell you. Then every member of the company limited by shareholding the preference share capital shall. So this is about the preference capital. So they will have a right to vote only on the subject matter which is directly affecting them. And when their rights become equal. So last one. So provided further that where the dividend in respect of class of preference shareholders has not been paid for the period of 2 years or more, then such a class of preference shareholders shall have a right to vote on all the resolutions placed before the meeting. Okay. So on this we will prepare a chart. But before I prepare, I'm taking just 2 minutes leave and I will be back. In the meantime, if you wish to revise, you can read this resolution. I can make it a little larger for you. So you can read the whole resolution. And I work a lot with words, so I play lots of gimmicks. I'm making it a little smaller. So now you can read this. Okay. I'm taking off for 2-3 minutes and we'll be back very soon. Now back. Let me stop the sharing and we will make a chart on the board. You have to be a little serious about attending the class. Be regular. If you miss out, okay? So here. Voting rights. Voting rights equity and preference. Equity shareholders vote on every resolution placed before general meeting, right? Preference shareholders can vote, number one, on every resolution in a class meeting. Class meeting means it's a meeting of preference shareholders only. Number two, in a general meeting, on a subject by which their rights are affected. So when you have taken the note, tell me. I'll tell you something more. So preference shareholders, they can vote only either in class meeting or in a general meeting if the rights are given. And then, as a special note here, write a word note. And what is to be written? That note is only for preference, not for equity. Voting rights of preference shareholders will become hello. चल रहा है बेटा class? चल रहा है बेटा. फिर से check करो. Sorry, friends, there was some other participants who were missing the class, so she called up. So voting rights of the public shareholders or the preference shareholders will become at par with equity shareholders if dividend has not been paid on preference shares for 2 years. So just as a note, so prima facie voting rights are separate. Voting rights are distinct for equity shareholders and preference shareholders, but where dividend has not been paid for 2 years, the voting right of preference shareholders become at par with the voting rights of equity shareholders. Have you taken a note? Okay. So now going ahead. Voting in general meeting. Now this can be by show of hands, or this can be by poll. This is not a part of this section. This is certainly related to general meeting. But since we are talking about the voting, let me tell you something more. So voting in general meeting is either by show of hands or by poll. Voting by show of hands, it is generally, and by poll, this is only on demand. Voting by show of hands. Generally, all the voting in the general meeting is by show of hands. And voting by poll, this is only if there is a demand for that, otherwise not. And this means one person, one vote. And here, this is one share, one vote. That is the difference. In case of voting by show of hands, it is one person, one vote. And in case of voting by poll, it means one share, one vote. So when the voting has already been done by show of hands, still the poll can be demanded. This carries overriding effect over the result, which is by show of hands. But the result of voting by poll is final. Again, the same thing, just 1 minute. I don't know. कहाँ से बात कहाँ बात करते तो 11 बजे Sorry, friends. So there was something problem. So you say something is written over. Proxies can't vote through show of hands. There are lots of other conditions. In case of poll, if the person is having 300 shares and his vote in favor of resolution, it means 300 favorable votes for. Yes, that is what happens. So you understand one thing, that this, I said, this generally happens that one person, one vote. And once the result of voting by show of hands is there, still the poll can be demanded, and result of voting by show of hands can be changed by voting through poll. Result of this can be changed, but this result is final. This cannot be altered later on. I hope it is clear, right? And voting rights can be restricted only due to one factor. There are call scenarios, provided there are provisions in the Articles of Association. Okay, so here you can put a note, another note. Okay, so that note I am writing. Voting is a statutory right of members. Any restriction on voting right for any reason other than calls and arrears shall be void. Then restriction due to calls and arrears shall be incorporated in Articles of Association. Take a note of this quickly and then we go ahead. Tell me when it is done. Okay, thank you. So I'm trying to do as if we are in the classroom. I'm using a board. My face may not be visible, but board must be more clear to you. So now, coming back to share. So now let's go ahead in sharing and variation of shareholders' rights. So first you have to understand what are we are talking about variation of shareholders' rights. So these rights may be statutory rights or these may be additional rights. So rights can be divided in two categories only for your understanding. Actually, it doesn't make any difference whether these are statutory rights or these are additional rights. So rights which are conferred by the act itself, those are called statutory rights, and additional rights conferred through the Articles of Association or through the terms of offer or in the prospectus, those are called additional rights. Now, whenever you want to alter the rights of the members, alter the rights of the shareholders, there are two ways of doing it. Either you get the approval of members of that class of 3/4 of the total number of members in that class, or you pass a special resolution in that class meeting. Which is better option? Getting approval of 3/4 in writing, or passing a special resolution? Which is the better option? Or these are one and same? Prafulla, no, these are not one and same. These are different. Tell me. Quickly. It is interesting too. And you see here, once I tell you that you are not right, don't judge yourself whether you are right or wrong. Only difference is either you are aware or not aware. You are not wrong. Be very clear about that, right? So whatever you get, whatever little knowledge is there, there is nothing right, nothing wrong. Only difference of understanding. Let me tell you what is that. So another chart. Rights of members. These can be two ways. Statutory rights or there can be additional rights. Statutory rights these are already given in the law, in the act. And additional rights, these are conferred through articles or prospectus. So rights are divided in two categories. These are statutory rights and additional rights. So statutory rights are those which are given by the act, and additional rights are those which are given through the either prospectus or through the articles. Now, whatever be the rights can be varied. Variation. For the variation of rights, two things are possible. You can choose which one you want. Either written approval of 3/4, or you pass a special resolution in a general meeting. Now, how the difference will come, let me elaborate you on that. Assuming that there are 500 members in the class whose rights have to be varied. So if there are 500, then 3/4 will become 375. You will have to get the written approval of 375. But for passing a special resolution, what is required? 500 members are there in the class. You call a general meeting, and only 50 people come in general meeting. Out of 50 also, only 40 people vote. 10 people don't know whether they have to vote or they don't have to vote. Out of 40, if 30 are in favor, the special resolution is passed. Out of 50, 30 people voting in favor, or rather out of 40, 50 people are attending, 40 people are voting, 30 people are in favor. That is a special resolution. This resolution passed, it is binding on 500 members. But if you want to go for approval, then 375. So that's why these are not same, these are different. Now this way variation can be done, but this variation will not be effective for next 20 days, because during those 20 days 10% members of the class who have not given their consent in writing here, who have not voted here, they can file a petition before the tribunal for prohibiting that implementation of variation of rights. That can be implemented. Okay, so this way variation can be prohibited. So I'm writing further. So any such variation, is not effective for 20 days. It becomes effective from 21st day. During these days, members holding at least 10% of that class I'll answer the question, just let me complete first. So during these days, members holding at least 10% of that class who have not voted in favor earlier, who have not voted in favor earlier, can approach NCLT for cancelling the variation. They can approach NCLT for cancellation of the variation of rights. Now your question is, in a special resolution, 3/4 will be calculated of the valid votes for all those who present in the general meeting. No. Out of 40, those who have voted, not present. Out of 100 may be present, but if 10 are voting, we will consider only out of 10, not out of 100. Okay. So be very clear about those who are present and voting. So not only those who are present. Any more questions? Any more questions on this? If one person is holding 10%, yes, he can make an application. 10% holding is required. Can we move to the NCLT? Yes, he can. Yes. Special resolution, even for consent also that applies, because in consent also you need to have 3/4. When does this variation of right occur? Whenever you feel right. So generally that is in relation to preference shares, because if in a preference share we want to change the percentage of dividend. Earlier you were giving the dividend a fixed rate of 12%, now you want to reduce it to 10, that is the variation. For making application to NCLT, you have to prove that you have minimum 10% share capital. So either single person or jointly, that confirmation will have to be given to be eligible to make an application. Okay, so now let us go ahead and we take some more portion. So coming back to sharing portion, and it's a so variation of rights. So first is either 3/4 of the class or pass a special resolution in the class meeting, and if one or variation of right of one category is affecting the rights of another person also, then approval is required from both. Now assume that you have been paying dividend on preference shareholders at the rate of 10% and now you want to increase it to 12%. All preference shareholders will agree. Nobody will think that. But at the same time, when you increase the rate of dividend to the preference shareholders, ultimately the amount available to the equity shareholders will be reduced. Now they can, that is also variation. So that is what is written on the left side here in the margin, this one yellow one. This says if other classes affected get their consent also. It means at the same time you are affecting two classes, you need to have the approval from two class of members. One is preference shareholders, another is equity shareholders. So this is a variation of rights. When who can apply? So where the shareholders not less than 10% of the issued shares of that class, or that did not vote, did not consent, right, or vote. So it is both ways. So they can apply to the NCLT when this is within 21 days. Provided application under this section shall be made within 21 days. So 20 days is the time. So if the application does not go within this much of time, the amendment or the variation will become effective. Calls on shares. Now there is no concept of calls and shares. This is only a theory left. You can either or omit, doesn't make a difference. Section 50. This is relevant. So this is company to accept unpaid share capital, although not called up. So that is certainly in relation to calls. So when the shares are there, share money or application allotment money is different, and money is received in installments. There only this will become applicable. Theoretically, you will never see again in future. Because now, whenever public issues are there, entire money is collected at the time of application itself. Now, by chance, if there is a separation, that there is a application money, then allotment money, then first call, then second call, then third call. Of course, I don't know when you can see some kind of, but what is said under section 50 is that if authorized by articles, company can accept their money on account of share capital. Same is about the right issue as well. So if the money is to be received in installments, and if some shareholder wants to pay that money in advance without a call being made, company can accept that money without call. But because of that additional payment, that person will not have any additional voting right. He may get dividend because of section 51, but because of excess payment, he will not have extra voting right. Section 51 says that you can incorporate the provisions in the articles to pay the dividend in proportion of paid up amount of the that will determine the amount of dividend. So if the share is worth rupee 10, and the rate of dividend is 25%, and one person has paid 10 rupees, he will get the dividend 2.5. Another person has paid 5 rupees, he will get 1.25. Amount will vary, percentage will remain same. That is section 51. Now, application of premiums received in the issue of shares. So this is talking about the security premium account. Whenever shares are issued at a premium, the whole amount is required to be transferred to the securities premium account. And securities premium account is to be treated at par with the capital of company. So how you can make use of the securities premium account, that is already prescribed in law. And if it is used otherwise, that will be treated as a reduction of share capital. Securities premium account. So whenever securities are issued at any premium, the whole amount of premium is required to be transferred to a separate account called as securities premium account, and for all purposes that is treated at par with the equity, with the capital, and unauthorized utilization of securities premium account will be treated as a reduction of share capital. Illegal. Okay. Subsection 2 says where you can make use of this. So security premium account may be applied for. Okay. So this also you can highlight if you wish to highlight. This is another way of, this is the way you can highlight the things. So have the soft copy, you can make changes according to your requirement, that will help you. So ultimately objective is to read it faster. How to read fast, I'll tell you a little later. So this is one example how you can do it faster. Now, first reading will be slow, but subsequent reading you can really speed it up. And how fast you can do that, you can increase the reading speed up to 10 times. If your present reading speed is around 200 words, you can increase it up to 2000 words per minute. And the world record for that, for the fast reading, is 80,000 words per minute. And now we are not even 1% of that. So where the securities premium account can be utilized, so this can be utilized for issue of unissued shares to the members of the company, but these are fully paid up bonus shares. Bonus shares cannot be partly paid up. Bonus shares cannot be partly paid up. You can issue bonus share, but those have to be fully paid up. You can write off the preliminary expenses. You can also pay any commission or on the discount allowed on the debentures. You can also pay premium on the redemption of preference shares. And you can purchase own shares, buyback of shares. This money can be utilized. So these are the exclusive uses of securities premium account. Any utilization of securities premium account for a purpose other than these five will be treated as a reduction of share capital. Okay, then 3 is further narrowing down. So where you can utilize securities premium account, these are 5 uses. So number 1, fully paid up bonus shares. Number 2, you can say only highlight this much preliminary expenses. Then you can say commission or discount allowed on then providing premium payable on redemption of preference shares, and these are specific uses of the securities premium account. You cannot make use of this for any purpose other than these 5 authorized purposes. 53, provision of issue of shares at discount. And the earlier law we had the provision issue of shares at a discount with the prior permission of the company law board. Now company law board also does not exist, and this concept is also not existing. But this is possible only in a very, very specific case that is given under subsection 2A, when it is authorized by some special, under any special law. So RBI may permit that. And when it will be permitted only when the debt is converted into a pursuance of any statutory resolution plan or debt restructuring scheme. This is something very, very specific when this is possible. So RBI will not authorize in general. So this is possible only when there is a resolution plan. So what is a resolution plan? When the company is almost in the process of winding up, but before winding up, a last tile is being given for a resolution process. At that time, the company may be allowed to issue the shares at discount, not otherwise. Then, sweat equity, that is different. Sweat equity means that this is the amount or other certain shares being given to the people who have really, really worked hard for the growth of company since incorporation till now. So those who have really sweated for the company, the equity shares can be given to them at any price. So this says notwithstanding anything contained in section 53. So this is having overriding effect over section 53, because section 53 says you cannot issue shares at a discount, but sweat equity shares can be issued at any price. Here itself is a difference. A company can issue sweat equity shares of class already issued if the following conditions are satisfied. Now here, equity shares of a class of shares already issued. This is important. What kind of shares can be issued as a sweat equity? So you can issue that is certainly equity share, but that should belong to a class which is already issued. So as of now, in practically, you will not see different classes of equity shares. Theoretically, it is possible. Practically, we don't have different classes of equity shares. What is required is the issue of this is authorized by a special resolution, and the resolution specifies the number of shares, the current market price, consideration, classes of persons to whom issued, and how many shares have to be. All clause C has been omitted, and clause D, if you issue the shares and if it is a listed company, then listed company is required to give intimation to ROC plus SEBI, And if it is not a listed company, then SEBI is not applicable, except for the price. These shares are at par with other equity shares of the company. So refer what is written in the margins. This will serve the purpose. Is this clear? Or you need any more clarity? Any more feedback till now? Preference shares. Only redeemable preference shares. Redeemable shares are not allowed, and the period is maximum 20 years. In case of infrastructure projects, period can be longer than 20 years. Limit up to which equity share the sweat equity can be issued. There is no limit as such here in the Act. From time to time, different conditions can be imposed. So as far as Act is concerned, no limit. Redemption conditions, these are important. So when you redeem the preference share, these are certain important conditions. Condition number A, no such shares shall be redeemed except out of profits of the company which could otherwise be available for dividend or out of proceeds of a fresh issue, where from you are going to get the money, redemption money. Only two ways: either you have created a reserve or another type of securities are issued for redemption of preference shares, and those shares are fully paid up, and the shares are redeemed, the CRR is created, capital redemption reserve, and this will again be treated at par with the capital, and this can also be utilized for issue of fully paid up bonus share. Then, in case of such, is prescribed the whose financial statement, no, this is not relevant for you. So those are actually three conditions where from you can redeem. So redemption can be out of a reserve created out of profits or out of proceeds of another issue, and shares have to fully paid up, and you need to create a CRR of the face value of the shares. When we say nominal value, so this is face value of the shares, not the redemption value, the face value of the shares. For that, you need to create a CRR, and CRR will be utilized only for issue of bonus shares, not otherwise. So number 4, see, the CRR may, notwithstanding anything in this section, be applied to the company in paying up unissued shares of the company to be issued to the members as fully paid up bonus shares. So this itself is a question. Can you issue the partly paid up bonus shares? Answer is clearly no. Whenever bonus shares are there, those always have to be fully paid up. Right? There is a specific section also, will come to that. Transfer and transmission, this I'm not covering, so this you can read. In case of refusal, now this is something interesting, because earlier we started today's lecture with the right of the members to transfer the shares. Share is a movable and transferable property, and if the shares are transferred by one person to the another person, but the company refuses to register the transfer, company has to inform both the person, the transfer and transferee both, that why it is not registering the transfer, and the person to whom registration of the transfer is refused, he can approach NCLT against the refusal by the company. Rectification, we are not reading. Publication of authorized capital. Now this thing you can see how many people really understand the difference between authorized capital, subscribed capital, paid up capital, issued capital. A layman really don't understand. As a student of CS, as a student of company law, you understand the difference between what is authorized capital, but a layman will not understand. So today you register a new company with the authorized capital of 5 crores. The issued capital or the paid up capital may be only 5 lakhs, but the authorized capital is 5 crores. And tomorrow they start advertising that the company is having the authorized capital of 5 crores. A layman will understand as if the paid up capital is 5 crores. So that's why section 60 said if you mention authorized capital, you also have to mention what is issued capital, what is subscribed capital, what is paid up capital, and the prominence or the font size of making the reference should be same. You cannot highlight what the authorized capital alone. So authorized capital, subscribed capital, paid up capital, all should be mentioned in equal shape and size. Now, this is section 61. This is talking about the power of the limited company to alter the share capital. How the share capital can be altered? Share capital can be altered either by increasing the authorized capital or by consolidating the shares or by subdividing the shares or converting shares into stock or converting stock into shares. All these are called alteration of share capital. Okay. So friends, after having the lecture of 1 hour and 45 minutes, I'm feeling a little tired. I want to have a 5 minutes break. But in the break, I will run another video for you so that you will understand something different what I was talking about. Okay, just wait for a while. Completely. And here, just see the video speed reading. This video, see, and I will be back. So now I am stopping this one, and we are back on. So can we go ahead now? Okay. So once again back on sharing the screen, and we'll take a question what we're talking about. So power to a company to alter the share capital. What is alteration? So alteration, I said, you can increase your authorized share capital. You can consolidate shares for the shares of higher amount. You can subdivide the shares into shares of a smaller value. You can convert the shares into stock or stock into shares. So these many ways that alteration of capital is possible. And the last one is saying you can cancel the shares which have not been issued. So there's a note about reduction of share capital. These are shares which have not been issued. Why it is not? Who's stopping? Can you see it now? Is it coming? Okay, okay. So I don't know who stopped the sharing, but so how the share capital can be altered? First is you can increase authorized capital, right? So when we say alter the share capital, so this is as given in the memorandum. We're not talking about paid up capital. That you can change always. You can increase the paid up capital. You can reduce. Reduction is already a part of the set of this chapter. We'll talk about that, right? So what is mentioned in the memorandum in the capital clause? Okay. So let me just tell you about that. Let me stand up. I'll give you on the board. Here we have capital clause in memorandum of association. In this clause, what is the written? This talks about authorized capital. This talks about number of shares in which authorized capital is divided. This also talks about nominal value of shares. Okay. For example, authorized capital is rupees 1 crore divided into 10 lakh shares of rupees 10 each. Right? So those who have not seen a memorandum, they can just Google and check the memorandum. Okay. So this is what is mentioned in the article. Now this you can increase it to rupees 2 crores or any other amount as you want. This will become 20 lakhs and this will continue to be rupees 10. So this is amendment of the memorandum as far as capital clause is concerned. So this is called increase of capital. Okay. Another way what you can do is you continue with the 1 crore and reduce the number of shares. So instead of 10 lakhs, now you can have these 5 lakhs. And this you can make rupees 20. This is called a consolidation of shares. So nominal value of the share is increased by consolidating 2 or more shares. That is one way of changing the capital. Alternate, what you can do is now you can divide that into 20 lakh shares and make the face value of rupees 5 each. This is called subdivision of capital. Right. Next is what is given there is that you can convert that into stock and stock into share. That is again a theory in India, not practical. So actually 3 types of alteration. Either you can increase or you can convert that into a higher value or you can convert that into lower value. So that is called consolidation or subdivision. Then number talking about cancellation of shares. So cancellation is actually not of any meaning. So once you make an issue and which are not subscribed, so unsubscribed shares may be cancelled. So really for you that doesn't make any change. For as a student, you have to understand only 3 types of alteration. As a student, only three type of alteration is relevant for you. Right? Slightly up, I'll write it here again. Number one, increase of authorized share capital. Number two, consolidation of existing names. Number three, subdivision of existing names. So three type of alteration. Okay. Now, what is required for amendment or any kind of amendment in the memorandum? Special resolution. Now I'll give you a homework. Homework is take a note. I'm writing on the chat. Complete procedure for increase of authorized share capital and draft resolutions required for the purpose. Noted the homework? Now, as far as procedure is concerned, it is always very, very simple that whenever you want to pass a resolution in the general meeting, first of all, get the approval in the board. So first there is the board meeting, the board resolution, then the board meeting itself, you get the approval for general meeting, you pass a resolution for approving the notice. Yes. So the drafting part of the resolution I discussed last time. I think this was about shifting of registered office, isn't it? Yeah. So in the last homework I had given you shifting of registered office. So shifting of registered office, you need to give a reason why you want to shift a registered office, and by chance if you cannot mention the reason, then you can mention that as given in the explanatory statement. Okay. So once again telling you about the capital. So what you need to do first is conduct a board meeting, pass a resolution for alteration or increase of capital, also get the approval for conducting a general meeting, pass a resolution for approval of the notice of the general meeting. In the general meeting, pass a special resolution, file a certified copy of the resolution with the ROC, also file a relevant form for increase of authorized capital, pay the differential amount of registration fees, stamp duty, etc., etc. Then it becomes effective, and make amendment everywhere you have mentioned authorized capital. So that is how you have to write the procedure. So write the procedure, complete procedure plus the relevant resolution. Right. So this, when I said for the reminding me, that is about, I'll send you personally, not here, because that is not meant for everyone. For you, I'll do that separately. So I have already given you homework what is required. So you need to write the procedure, you need to write the resolution. So for everything, what is advanced company law practice? Everything that you are reading, you must know the procedure, you must know the resolution, right? And if you see the past papers, hardly 30 to 40% questions are based on resolutions and procedures. The rest of the questions are based on law, and I am talking about law. Okay. Now going back to the sharing part. Further issue of share capital. This is not saying right issue. This is saying further issue. Further issue means once the shares have already been issued earlier. The first offer is always given to the subscribers to the memorandum. Who are the shareholders of the company? Who are the first members of the company? Certainly the subline. Is the any doubt? Subline. Repeat the homework. It is already written in the chat. You go up and see in the. So further issue of share capital means the once capital has already been issued. So first time the allotment of the shares is made to the subscribers to the memorandum, and after that any time it is to be done, then that is called further issue of share capital. That should be done. That is answered in section 62. So this says where at any time a company having a share capital proposes to increase the subscribed capital, not authorized capital we are talking about. What increase of subscribed capital? How? That by issuing the further shares. Then these shares should first of all be offered to the existing members unless you have followed another procedure. What is the procedure that we are going to see here? To whom these offers should be given? To the person who at the date of the offer are holder of the equity shares of the company in proportion as nearly as circumstances admit to the paid up share capital of those shares by sending a letter of offer to them. So the new offer or the new shares should be offered to the existing shareholders in a proportion. How to draw that proportion? That is up to you. You can offer the number of shares to every share, or you can offer in proportion of their existing shareholding. That is a matter of choice. What proportion you want to keep, and the offer should be given by sending a letter of offer. And letter of offer, when it is sent, then minimum time period for exercise the right is given 15 days, maximum 30 days, and in between you can decide. And you can also mention in the offer letter that if you don't want to subscribe, you can give the right to somebody else. That is called right of renunciation. And if the right is not exercised within the given time, then the board of directors will have a right to offer the shares to anybody else. See point number 1 here. The offer shall be made by the notice specifying the number of shares offered, limited not less than 15 days. Then the article of the company otherwise provided offer shall be deemed to include a right exercisable by the person renounce the share. The right of renunciation is always there. Then after the expiry of the time specified in the notice, so this is maximum 30 days as I said. After the expiry of that time, the board of directors will have a right to dispose of the shares in the way they want. This is also called right issue. So whenever a company proposes to increase its subscribed capital by offering new shares for subscription, it can be otherwise increased when existing loans are converted. Then this is not applicable. Some direction given by the government and existing outstanding loans are converted into capital. This is not applicable. This is when company proposes to increase the capital by offering shares for subscription, then the new shares should be offered for subscription to the existing shareholders in a proportion of their existing holding or any other proportion as it deemed fit. Whenever any such offer is to be made, and our letter of offer should be sent to everyone, and the number of shares offered should be given therein. The minimum time given to them for exercise the right should not be less than 15 days. That the right should be accompanied with a right of renunciation. Right of renunciation can be restricted through the articles of association, and if the right is not exercised by the members to whom this offer has been given within the given time, then the board of directors will have a right to dispose of the shares by offering those shares to somebody else for subscription. Number B is under the employees stock option that can be given to the employees and to any other person if authorized by a special resolution. So how the can be offered? So again, we will draw a chart for that. Okay. New shares can be offered for a subscription. Broadly, we can divide it in two parts. One is employees. Employees stock option. Then in the other category you have existing members and to the outsiders. Right? Want to offer the shares to employees, this requires a special resolution. This requires a special resolution. Offering the shares to the existing shareholders, this doesn't require a special resolution, only board resolution is needed. But when it is the existing shareholders, this requires offer in proportion of existing holding or proportion, equal proportion to all, that is your choice. It has to be letter of offer, minimum 15 days, and when it is given, right of renunciation, then makes 30 days, and if the shares offered to the existing members are not subscribed within the given time, then the board will have a right to offer it to anybody else. If the member does not want to do all the shares in this way, they can follow the procedure. 1 minute. Hello. Hello. हेलो सर मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको सर मैं एक वेबिनार में हूँ केवल आधे घंटे में कॉल करूँ आपको existing corporate clients. Anyway, so here I was talking about, so existing members, they can be offered this way. Board can decide to make an offer directly to outsiders without going through this procedure. And if they want to directly go to the outsiders, they have to pass a special resolution. And when they offer to outsiders, this can be combined in that. So when the offer is made to outsiders, it does not mean prohibit the existing members from exercising that. It can be a combined offer also. So to the extent you want to go outsiders, do this. To the extent you want to do this, then you do this. And if you don't want this at all, then only this. It's a matter of choice. So this is how the new shares can be offered for subscription. This is called as a right issue. This is right issue. Done? Okay. So now proceeding further, not much of the time is there. 263 issue of bonus shares. Bonus shares can be issued only if authorized by articles of association, only fully paid up bonus shares out of free reserves, out of securities premium account, and out of CRR. No other way. Fully paid up bonus shares not authorized. Right? This is important. Prior to Companies Act 2013, this was not there, and that time lot of misuse was done by issuing bonus shares by revaluation of assets. But now it is no more allowed. So bonus shares, whenever those are issued, those have to be fully paid up. Only fully paid up bonus shares can be issued. Where from? Out of free reserves. What is the meaning of free reserves? Reserves which are created out of profit. Condition number one. Number two, not for any specific purpose. Or you can say reserves created out of profit and which are available for distribution by way of dividend. Those are called free reserves. So bonus shares can be issued out of free reserves, out of securities premium account, out of capital redemption reserve, but the asset revaluation reserve cannot be utilized for issue of bonus shares. Okay. Now, no company capitalize its profits or reserves for the purpose of issuing fully paid up bonus shares unless authorized by article. So, without authorization, bonus shares cannot be issued. Now, happen if there is no provision in the company's articles for issue of bonus shares. Then standard of articles of association are applicable as per table F. So not a problem at all. But whenever you go in a company, make it sure that you examine the articles and make it more and more valid for every purpose in law. Then it has on the recommendation of the board been authorized in general meeting of the company. Now this is a very, very important question. Why you need approval of general meeting for issue of bonus shares? This we have to discuss. I'm stopping the sharing for the moment and we'll come back. Why do we need the approval of members for issuing the bonus shares? Question. When you are giving the shares free of cost to the members, why their approval is required? Answer please. Cash is used. No, cash is not used. Value as per the share dilutes. No, it is not. No. 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 Anyway, now let me give you the answer. You are aware that interested directors cannot vote? Tell me yes or no, whether you are aware that interested directors cannot vote. Right? Now, in almost in every case, except when independent directors are there, the directors are holding shares in the company. And being interested director, there is no non-interested majority in the board. And when the bonus shares are issued, they are also likely to be benefited. So they being interested, they cannot take a decision. Same people in the general meeting can vote in the capacity of members. That's why whenever there is a bonus issue, members' approval is required. There can be a situation where directors do not hold the shares in the company. In that case, no general meeting resolution will be needed. I'm writing a small note here on the chat. Since directors generally hold shares in the company, they are interested directors. Therefore, they cannot vote on the issue of bonus shares. You got your answer. For voting in the board meeting, we need a quorum of disinterested directors. And generally, directors are shareholders. They cannot vote in the board meeting because they will be treated as interested directors. Is everyone clear about this? Only 3-4 people are interacting. Rest all are just watching or sleeping. In private companies, yes, but in in the general meeting, they vote in the capacity of members, not in the capacity of directors. Yes, because of shareholding, they become interested. So when we talk about directors, I'll talk in detail what is the meaning of interest of directors. So whenever directors are likely to get any kind of benefit, either monetary or non-monetary, they will be treated as interested directors. So this is not solely any. They're likely to get. They may not get. They may get. They may not get. But they're likely to get. They are treated as interested, and the benefit may not be financial also. So that is the reason. That's why for issue of bonus shares, general meeting resolution is required. Okay. Now getting back to sharing again. So coming here, notice to the registrar for alteration of capital. Whenever you change, their notice has to be given. So this notice, I told you in the procedure, when you pass a special resolution, then you give a special resolution has to be registered. Plus, in addition to that, notice of the increase in capital or alteration of capital that you have to register, and you have to pay the differential stamp duty as well as registration fees. Unlike company, this provision, I'm omitting reduction of share capital. So this reduction of share capital, this is different from buyback of shares. Buyback results into reduction, but that is not covered herein. Redemption of preference shares also results into reduction of capital, that is also not covered herein. So this reduction of capital is other than buyback of shares and other than redemption of preference shares. So that also I will mention it for you. So this is, let us put it here this way, and this is other than buyback of shares and redemption of preference shares. So this is other than that. So why that is needed? What are the situations where reduction of capital may be desirable? So where the amount of capital shown in the balance sheet is not reflected in the assets. In that case, it is desirable to reduce the capital. And this reduction of capital can be in multiple ways. First is you cancel the liability of the members to pay the amount that has not been called. Cancel the liability. Effectively, you're reducing the face value of the share. Right. So assume that you have issued the shares worth rupee 10, you have called rupees 5, balance 5 had not been paid, and now you don't need that balance 5. You can cancel the liability for remaining 5. That will be called a reduction of share capital. But in case of reduction of share capital, you are affecting the rights of the creditors, you are affecting the right of some other people. You will have to have the approval of all those people plus the proper consent of the tribunal. So without the permission of the tribunal, capital cannot be reduced except when it is buyback of shares or it is redemption of preference shares. So, and anything other than these two, if there is a reduction of capital, that requires permission of the tribunal. So first mode for the reduction of capital is extinguishing the liability in respect of uncalled share capital. Number two, writing of the amount of the capital against the reserves. And number three is paying back the money not required. So there are three ways in which you can reduce the share capital. First is extinguishing the liability for uncalled amount of share capital. Unpaid amount you cannot cancel because that will be discrimination. Some people have paid full amount, some people have paid partial amount. What you can cancel is amount that has not been called. Number two, you can cancel the amount which is not reflected by the assets. So you are reducing again the face value of the shares. Number three, you have surplus money and you are paying back in proportion of the existing shareholding to every shareholder. That is another way of reducing the share capital. So there are three ways in which share capital can be reduced. So here, extinguishing or reduce the liability, and then without extinguishing, reduce the liability of any share. There is cancel the paid up share capital which is lost. It is not reflected in the balance sheet. Cancel the paid up share capital not lost. So here it means for tallying the balance sheet, you are having accumulated losses as the asset. So accumulated losses are never the asset, right? So to the extent of removing that amount, you reduce the capital. That is called cancelling the paid share capital. Then payoff. Payoff means paying the surplus amount available. So only three ways in which capital can be reduced. Number, the liability for the amount which has not been called up. Two, cancelling the capital which is not reflected by the assets. And number three, paying of the surplus amount. Right? This will alter the memorandum. Why it will alter the memorandum? Because this will change the face value of the shares. That's why amendment of memorandum required. And amendment of memorandum requires a special resolution, and reduction of capital requires approval of the tribunal. So there will be two things here. There is a board resolution, there is a general meeting resolution, there is a tribunal approval, then only reduction of capital will be possible. And when you reduce, some more procedural formalities are needed. So this says when this application is made to the tribunal shall give a notice of every application made to it under subsection 1 to the central government, to the registrar, to the SEBI, etc., etc. Everyone who may be affected because of reduction of capital, everyone will be given an opportunity of being heard. So that procedural part you can read. This I'm leaving and going ahead. This is restriction on purchase by the company or giving of loans by the shares. Company cannot be its own shareholder. At the same company also cannot help financially somebody else buying its own shares, except where giving the loan in the ordinary course of business of the company. So banking companies are in the activity of giving the loan. NBFCs are in the business of giving the loans. So this is not applicable giving of loan, because what for the loan is being given, that is up to them. In general, company cannot give a loan to any person to buy its own shares. Company cannot be a guarantor for some other person who's borrowing money from third source, who's borrowing the money for buying the company's own shares. Company cannot buy company, or a company cannot give him loan. Company cannot be guarantor for such a person. But the company can certainly give a loan to its employees. This is exemption. Subsection 3 is talking about exemption. Nothing in subsection 2 shall apply to the lending company, banking company in the ordinary course of business. And so where lending is in the ordinary course of business, that can be done. And any company can give a loan to the employees up to their 6 months wages. But they will not be holding shares as the representative of the company. They will be liable to repay the money to the company. They will be the shareholder for every purpose. They will be the beneficial holder. Company will not be the beneficial holder of its own shares. Company can give financial assistance to its own shares, right? So when we say company cannot buy, company cannot give a loan to any person to buy its own shares. So whether it is subsidiary or it is associate company or group company or some other company, cannot for this purpose. Purpose is something different. Give a loan as per provisions of the act, and then if it is misutilized by the other company, that is not up to you. Some more questions there. So let me complete this topic, then I'll come to that. This is about buyback. So first of all, let me see the questions what you have, and then we'll see. We'll come back here. So here in the chat, I have some questions. So this is saying, a director holding shares of the company is interested director, but if a person holding shares in the company, and the same person is a director and shareholder in other company. So in one company, he is voting as a member, but he is holding directly from other company, which is subsidiary of the company into trade contract. Then in the wherever he is holding shares, he will always be treated as an interested director if he is likely to get the benefit. But when he is in the general meeting, in general meeting, they vote in the capacity of member, not in the capacity of director. There is only one exception where we will talk about later, that interested director cannot vote in the general meeting also. There is only one situation in the entire act, right? Any other specific question? Can company give loan to buy it to a different company? It can, but not only for this specific purpose. Buyback of shares, companies own shares by the company. So earlier provision we said that company cannot buy its own shares. Why? Because it cannot be its own shareholder. Now in this section, this begins with the notwithstanding anything in this section. So earlier we said company cannot be its own shareholder. That was a different sense. Under section 68, when the company buys the share, those are only for the purpose of cancelling those shares. Those will not be reissued to anybody. Otherwise, when we said company cannot buy its own shares, so that is the prohibition of being its own shareholder. Here, the buying back is for the purpose of cancelling the share capital, reduction of share capital, which this buyback does not require approval of the tribunal. So, reduction of share capital can be two ways: with the permission of tribunal, without the permission of tribunal. With the permission, those are three ways. Without the permission of tribunal, there are two ways. Without the permission of tribunal is buyback of own shares, and number two, redemption of preference shares. Permission of tribunal, that can be cancelling the liability for the uncalled amount of share capital. Number two, of the amount of capital not represented by the assets, and number three, paying back surplus amount. Right? Buyback own shares by the company. This is also a reduction of share capital, but this does not require approval of the tribunal. It is subject to the condition where from company will buy, from which source it will procure the share, where from it will bring the amount for required for buyback, and certain other conditions related to that. Remember this section, a question is generally asked from this section in the exam about the buyback. Very, very important section. So before coming to this, we'll go to subsection 5, that is first part, where from company can source the shares for buyback. This is there. The buyback under subsection 1 may be from the existing shareholders of the security holders of the proportionate basis or from the open market or by purchasing the securities issued yes, to the employees under the employee stock option scheme. Three ways. They can buy from the market, they can buy from the shareholder, they can buy from employees. And for buying this, where from the company gets the money, this is in subsection 1, and that is either free reserves, or you can have securities premium account or proceeds of another type of issue, not the same issue. You are buying back the equity shares, and you want to utilize this proceeds for proceeds of issue of another issue of equity share. That is not allowed. So issue another type of shares, and then you can utilize that money for buying back shares. So there are three ways wherefrom you can get the money for buyback. You cannot borrow the money for buyback. Practical questions are difficult on buyback. There can be a resolution for buyback. They can ask you a procedure for buyback. They can ask a question about the provisions in relation to buyback. They will not give you a practical question, right? So here, first is where from shares can be bought back: open market, existing shareholders, employees. Choices with the company. Where from you get the money? Either free reserves or securities premium account, or make issue of another type of securities for that purpose. Now, subject to that, now comes the conditions. What is required for buyback? First of all, buyback should be authorized by the Articles of Association. Number two, there has to be a special resolution, but special resolution is required only where the amount of share capital to be bought back is exceeding the limit for which permission has already been given to the board of directors. So to what extent the board of directors is authorized? Let us see here. So here it is. Provided that nothing contained in the clause applies where the buyback is 10% or less of the total paid up capital and free reserves of the company. So this is the amount which is required to be spent for buyback. This is saying buyback is 10% or less of the paid up capital and free reserves of the company. So how much money you are going to spend for buyback? If it is not exceeding this amount, then only board can take a decision. There the special resolution is not required. And if it is exceeding 10%, but up to 25%, then a special resolution is certainly needed. So 25% is for one financial year. And this 25% is computed with reference to the opening capital of the financial year. So as in the current financial year, what is the capital as of 1st April 2020? Up to 25% can be bought back in this financial year 2021, but with the prior approval of members by way of a special resolution. And if this is limited to not exceeding 10%, this can be done by the board of directors on its own. So up to 10% buyback decision can be taken by the board. Between exceeding 10% up to 25% decision can be taken by the general meeting. But that is in one financial year. If it is every financial year, you can go on buyback. So here the limit is given up to 25% in clause C. Clause D is saying that after buyback, the debt equity ratio should not be more than 2:1. Debt cannot be more than the twice of the amount of capital, but in certain industries, government may permit the higher debt equity ratio also. Then all the shares must be fully paid up. In case of listed companies, you have to fulfill the procedure or the regulations of SEBI. And then period of 1 year, you cannot go for buyback. No offer for buyback within next 1 year. The notice of meeting for a special resolution, you have to specify certain information, complete source of the material facts, necessity, why you want to buy back, why you cannot utilize money for some other better purpose, the amount of investment. Procedure for buyback should be completed within 1 year since passing a special resolution. If after passing the resolution, board decides not to buy back, nobody can challenge. The buyback may be this we have already talked about. Yes, this is another very important point in subsection 6, that whenever there is a resolution for buyback of shares, then a declaration of solvency must be filed by the board. And declaration of solvency says that within 1 year after completion of buyback, company will continue to be financially sound. It will not become insolvent. So that is the meaning of declaration of solvency, right? When shares are bought back, those have to be cancelled. Those cannot be reissued by the company. Okay, so there is a message for me to stop the lecture right now. Some other urgent matter is coming up in the institute. So this is where we stop, and next lecture will start from section 73. 71, I'm leaving it for your homework, and the next lecture, that is day after tomorrow, will start with the chapter section 73. Rather, I'll recommend that you refer section 73 onwards. I'll start from general meeting portion, section 88. So those the next three lectures are going to be very, very important. So registration of charges, little bit I'll take, but yeah, I'll take from section 77 onwards in the next lecture. See you. Thank you very much.